All right, picture this, a quaint little town nestled in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by thick forests and rolling hills. It's the kind of place where everyone knows everyone else, where life is slow and predictable. But let me tell you, the events that unfolded in this sleepy town one fateful summer will make your hair stand on end. It all started innocently enough. I was visiting my cousin, Ellie, who lived in this charming town. I hadn't seen her in years, and I figured it would be a great opportunity to catch up. Plus, she'd been telling me about all the mysteries and legends surrounding the area, and I couldn't resist a good adventure. We met up at a local cafe, sipping on coffee and reminiscing about old times. The townsfolk were friendly, waving and smiling as they passed by, but there was something in their eyes, a hint of unease that I couldn't quite put my finger on. Ellie leaned in and whispered, "You know, there's something strange going on in this town lately. People have been disappearing without a trace." I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Disappearing? Like poof, gone? She nodded solemnly. Exactly. No one knows where they go or why. It's like they just vanish into thin air. I couldn't help but feel a shiver run down my spine. Have the police looked into it? Ellie sighed. They have, but there are no clues, no leads. It's as if these people never existed. As we chatted about it, my mind was racing. Okay, this is like something out of a Stephen King novel. I need to investigate this. Ellie looked at me with a mix of curiosity and concern. Are you sure? It's dangerous. But I was determined. I've always wanted to be part of a real-life mystery, and this town seems like the perfect place for it. We spent the next few days talking to the townspeople, trying to piece together the puzzle. Everyone had a theory, from alien abductions to a secret underground cult. I couldn't help but wonder if they were all just spooked by the recent disappearances, letting their imaginations run wild. One evening, as we walked along the outskirts of town, we stumbled upon an old, dilapidated shack in the woods. It was the kind of place that sends a shiver down your spine just looking at it. We decided to investigate, our flashlights cutting through the darkness. The shack was covered in dust and cobwebs, and the air was thick with a musty smell. It felt like a time capsule from a bygone era. As we rummaged through old newspapers and forgotten trinkets, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. My mind was racing, and I whispered to Ellie, "Do you hear that? It sounds like footsteps." She nodded, her eyes wide with fear. "We need to get out of here now." We made a hasty exit, our hearts pounding as we retraced our steps through the dark woods. It felt like the forest itself was closing in on us, as if it didn't want us there. Back in town, we decided to share our findings with the local authorities. The sheriff, a grizzled old man, listened intently to our story. His expression grew more serious with each detail. He finally spoke, his voice hushed. "You two stumbled upon something you shouldn't have. People have been disappearing because they've been getting too close to the truth." My mind was in overdrive again. The truth? What are you talking about? The sheriff sighed. There's an ancient legend in this town, one that's been passed down for generations. They say there's a hidden portal in these woods, a gateway to another world, and every so often it opens, and it takes someone from our world and replaces them with something otherworldly. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You're saying there's a portal to another world in these woods, and it's been taking people? The sheriff nodded gravely. We've tried to seal it, but it always reopens. We've learned to live with it, to make sacrifices to keep it appeased. But lately, it's been getting more restless. My thoughts were racing again. Sacrifices? What kind of sacrifices? The sheriff's eyes bored into mine. People, young people, like you and Ellie. It takes them and leaves something else behind, something that looks like them, but isn't. As we left the sheriff's office, my mind was a whirlwind of fear and disbelief. This can't be real. There's no way a portal to another world exists. This has to be some kind of town legend gone too far. But that night, as Ellie and I lay in our beds, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I heard her whisper in the darkness, "Do you hear that? It sounds like chanting." My heart stopped. Chanting? "Ellie, we need to leave now." We rushed to the window and looked out. What we saw in the woods was beyond anything I could have imagined. A group of hooded figures stood in a circle, chanting in a language I couldn't understand, and at the center of it all, a swirling vortex of darkness began to form. My mind was racing once more. This is it. This is the portal they were talking about. We need to get out of here. We grabbed our essentials and made a run for it, leaving behind everything we knew. The town that had seemed so charming and friendly had become a nightmare, and as we disappeared into the night, I couldn't help but wonder what would have become of us if we had stayed, if we had become sacrifices to the portal in the woods. So, there you have it, the chilling tale of a small town adventure turned terrifying. Sometimes, the mysteries of the unknown are best left unexplored. But here's the twist you didn't see coming. As we left that town, we couldn't shake the feeling that the portal's hunger had only grown stronger, and it would continue to claim unsuspecting souls in its quest for something otherworldly. All right, let me take you on a spine-tingling journey through a small town that defied time and logic. It's the kind of tale that'll make you question reality itself, so grab a warm beverage and get ready for a chilling ride. Picture this, a picturesque town that seemed stuck in the past, like a postcard from a bygone era. The buildings were old, the people dressed like they'd stepped out of a history book, and the atmosphere was heavy with nostalgia. It was a charming place, the kind that felt like stepping into a living museum. I was on a road trip with my friends, and this town was an unexpected detour. As we strolled through the cobblestone streets, I couldn't help but notice how pristine everything looked. It was like the whole town had been frozen in time, and it got my curiosity going. My buddies and I decided to investigate further. We started chatting with the locals, who spoke in a quaint, old-fashioned way that sent shivers down my spine. It felt like we'd stepped into the Twilight Zone. As we delved deeper into the town, my mind was racing. This is so bizarre. It's like we've entered a different era. How is this even possible? But the thrill of the mystery kept us going. We came across a charming little bookstore that looked like it had been plucked straight out of a Victorian novel. The shopkeeper, an elderly man with a twinkle in his eye, welcomed us warmly. He told us about the town's history, how it had always been this way, untouched by time. My internal musings were going wild. Did we stumble upon a hidden time portal? Is this some elaborate prank? Or is it just a town that's really dedicated to its theme? But I couldn't help but be captivated by the idea of a town that had somehow escaped the clutches of time. The sun began to set, casting long shadows on the streets. The town square was bustling with people in old-fashioned attire, dancing to the tune of a vintage band. It was like a scene out of a classic movie, and I was completely enchanted. As the night grew darker, we decided to explore further, and that's when things took a sinister turn. We noticed that some of the townsfolk had a strange, almost vacant look in their eyes. It was as if they were trapped in a never-ending performance, going through the motions with no emotion. My mind was racing again. What's happening here? Are they under some kind of spell? Or are we the ones who've stumbled into a twisted reality? But we couldn't ignore the unsettling feeling that had settled over us. We followed a narrow alleyway that led to an ancient-looking church. Its spire reached high into the night sky, and the stained glass windows shimmered with an eerie glow. As we entered, we saw the townspeople gathered in a circle, their voices raised in an ominous chant. My thoughts were a jumble of fear and confusion. This is like something out of a horror movie. Are they summoning something? And what in the world is that strange symbol on the floor? But we couldn't tear our eyes away from the bizarre scene unfolding before us. Suddenly, a blinding light engulfed the room, and a deafening noise filled the air. It was as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling. Panic set in as we realized that the town, the people, and everything around us were fading away, disintegrating into nothingness. My heart was pounding, and my mind was a whirlwind of terror. This can't be happening. We're vanishing into thin air. Is this the end? But then, as quickly as it had started, the blinding light receded, and we found ourselves back in the narrow alleyway. It was as if the entire town had never existed. My friends and I were in shock, our minds struggling to process what had just occurred. It felt like a waking nightmare, a glimpse into a reality beyond our comprehension. As we stood there, trying to catch our breath, a voice behind us spoke. "You shouldn't have come here." We turned to see the elderly shopkeeper from earlier, his eyes filled with sadness. He explained that the town was indeed a portal to a different time, a place where people had sought refuge from the chaos of the modern world. My thoughts were racing yet again. So it was real. We really traveled through time. But why did it start to unravel? The shopkeeper sighed. The town was never meant to be disturbed by outsiders. Your presence disrupted the delicate balance, and the portal began to collapse. We had to send you back before it was too late. And there it was, the unexpected twist. We had unknowingly entered a town outside of time, and our intrusion had set off a chain of events that threatened to erase it from existence. As we left that alleyway, the town and its people faded into nothingness, leaving behind only a lingering sense of wonder and dread. We had experienced a small-town adventure unlike any other, one that had taken us to the very edges of reality and back. So, my friend, the next time you stumble upon a quaint town that seems to defy time itself, be cautious. You never know what secrets it might hold, and the consequences of your curiosity could be far more terrifying than you ever imagined. Alright, gather around because I've got a hair-raising tale about a small-town adventure that nearly turned into a nightmare. Picture a picturesque little town, the kind you'd see in those old postcards. It was all rolling hills, charming houses, and friendly folks. I was there with a group of friends, looking for some small-town charm and a break from the daily grind. Now this town, it had a reputation for being one of those places that time seemed to have forgotten. The architecture was like stepping back in time, and the folks, they had a certain old-world charm about them. It felt like we'd wandered into a living time capsule. We were all pretty excited, snapping pictures of quaint houses and chatting with the locals. The whole town had this warm, inviting vibe. But here's where things started to get strange, and my mind began buzzing with questions. How can a town be so perfectly preserved? Is this some sort of elaborate theme park? But curiosity got the better of me. As we explored deeper into town, we couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The people, they were all so polite and friendly, but their smiles didn't quite reach their eyes. It was like they were putting on a show for us, playing their roles in this vintage town. My mind was working overtime. This feels surreal, like we've stepped into a time warp. But why? What's the story behind this place? And why does everyone seem so robotic? As we wandered down a narrow alleyway, we came across an old bookstore. The sign above the door creaked in the breeze, and the dusty windows hinted at untold stories within. We couldn't resist going in. The shopkeeper, an elderly man with silver hair and a twinkle in his eye, greeted us warmly. He had that classic storyteller's aura about him, like he'd seen it all. We started chatting, and that's when things took a bizarre turn. He leaned in closer, his voice hushed. "You're not from around here, are you? Be careful, there's something strange happening in this town." My thoughts were racing. Strange? What could be stranger than this place itself? Is this some kind of elaborate prank? but there was something in the shopkeeper's eyes that told me this was no joke. He told us about a hidden secret, a portal of sorts that existed beneath the town. It was said to be a gateway to another time, one that only the townspeople knew about. My mind was a whirlwind of questions. A portal? Is he for real? Or is this some sort of local legend they like to tell tourists? We decided to investigate further, as adventurers tend to do. That night, as the stars lit up the sky, we ventured into the woods that surrounded the town. It was dark, eerie, and we had nothing but flashlights to guide us. My heart pounded, but my curiosity wouldn't let me back down. My mind was a jumble of thoughts. What are we doing? This is crazy. What if there's something out here? What if we get lost? But the thrill of the unknown kept me going. As we delved deeper into the woods, we stumbled upon a clearing. In the center, there it was, a colossal, ancient-looking stone archway covered in vines and moss. It looked like something out of a fantasy novel, and there, etched into the stones, was a symbol that sent shivers down my spine. My thoughts were all over the place. This can't be real. It's like a portal to another world. What if it actually works? But what if it's dangerous? What if we unleash something we can't control? But it was too late to turn back. One of my friends, Sarah, touched the stone archway, and that's when it happened. A blinding light engulfed her, and she was gone, vanished. My mind went into overdrive. Sarah. Where did she go? Is she okay? What just happened? Panic set in, and we frantically searched for any sign of her. We had no choice but to continue. The portal, it beckoned us, and we couldn't leave Sarah behind. As we passed through it, my heart was pounding. Is this really happening? Are we in another world? What do we do now? The other side was nothing like we'd ever seen. It was a world untouched by time, filled with towering forests, ancient ruins, and a sense of magic in the air. My thoughts were racing. This is beyond surreal. Are we in some sort of alternate reality? Or did we travel back in time? But how do we find Sarah? We embarked on a quest to find our lost friend, facing all sorts of fantastical creatures and challenges along the way. It was like a fantasy adventure come to life, but there was always that nagging fear in the back of my mind. Is this real? Are we in danger? What if we never find Sarah? As we delved deeper into this strange world, we uncovered its secrets and made unexpected allies. It was an epic journey, but it felt like we were getting closer to the truth. My mind was buzzing with anticipation. We're on to something big, something magical. But can we trust these newfound friends? And what if the portal back home is closed forever? Finally, after what felt like an eternity, we found Sarah. She was safe, and our joy was immeasurable. But she told us about her own adventure in this world, one that had changed her forever. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions. What happened to her? Can we ever go back? Is this our new reality? And here comes the twist you didn't see coming. Sarah revealed that she had discovered the secret to controlling the portal, and we could use it to return home. But we had a choice to make: stay in this fantastical world or go back to our own, with the knowledge of an adventure that defied time and logic. As we stood at the threshold of the portal, my mind was racing once more. What do we choose? Do we stay in this magical world or return to the familiar? What awaits us on the other side? In the end, we decided to return home, but the memories of our small-town adventure would stay with us forever. It was a journey that had tested our courage, forged unbreakable bonds, and left us with a sense of wonder that would last a lifetime. So, my friend, sometimes the most unexpected adventures can lead to the most incredible discoveries, even if they take you to places you never thought possible.